Our next presentation is by the Reverend Dr. Nicholas Denysenko, who is the Emil and Elfriede Joachim Professor and Chair in Theology at Valparaiso University. He was previously the Director of the Huffington Ecumenical Institute at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. Denysenko is the author of a number of books on liturgy and liturgical art, including Theology-Informed Contemporary Orthodox Architecture in America, and his work has appeared in venues such as the Journal for the American Academy of Religion, Theological Studies, Studia Liturgica, Worship, and St. Vladimir's Theological Quarterly. He blogs regularly at Pray Tell, Worship, Wit, and Wisdom, and in his research, Denysenko explores the intersections of liturgical history, ritual studies, and pastoral theology. He's an ordained deacon in the Orthodox Church of America. And his talk today is Revising the Symbiotic Status Quo, Liturgy and Architecture in the 21st Century.
Good morning. Allow me to add my thanks, gratitude, and congratulations to the primary organizers of this event, also to Fordham University for hosting great space to talk about architecture, liturgy, history, memory, and all of the other powerful words that we've invoked so far. What will Orthodox architecture in America look like in the long run? The convenient answer to this rhetorical question is that it will remain the same or remain Orthodox. Anyone familiar with Orthodox basics can recognize the main features. The exterior will have some kind of dome and a cross. The interior will be filled with icons and the iconostasis. Most importantly, the edifice will look Orthodox. Its style will resemble the churches immigrants remember from their homeland. It is certainly true that Orthodoxy in America has followed the pattern of constructing copies of models established in their native homelands. Numerous Greek Orthodox churches bear the name of Hagia Sophia and imitate the architectural features of the archetype in Constantinople. Ukrainian emigre parishes built replicas of the so-called Cossack Baroque style, exemplified by Kyiv's St. Sophia, St. Michael's, and Uspensky cathedrals. Russian communities erected imitations of Moscow's renowned Uspensky Kremlin Cathedral. As we know, an imitation or a copy cannot replicate the original. No diocese or parish, to my knowledge, can levy a tax to fund their budget for innovative engineers to create a dome and interior lighting that inspires awe and wonder among Christian faithful and tourists for centuries to come. Copies are just that, copies that capture some aspect of the original. When parishes build new edifices, they also confront challenges as their building ages. Accessibility, seating, and climate control are needed for aging congregations. Severe weather damages roofs and foundations, and humidity can cause paint to peel and icons to fade. There are also considerations for spaces for educating children and adults, gathering and entertainment, hosting public events, and providing accessible spaces for the public to pray and worship. Evolving demographics can lead to people either driving long distances to church or not coming at all. And most significant is the question of change. As the people constituting the congregation change, how does that contribute to the possibility of revising architectural edifices along with their interior and exterior decorative spaces? The principle that tends to prevail in considering Christian architecture is one of the symbiosis of architecture and liturgy, of which we have already discussed and reflected several times in the past couple of days. The basic idea is that the shape of the liturgy, its rites and movements, contribute to the actual architectural designs. The reverse is occasionally true, that architecture shapes the liturgical celebration. I'm going to spend a few moments surveying the architectural status quo in Orthodox America by presenting three models of architecture and a few comments on the realities within them. I will then turn to what I believe is the most urgent agenda item: flexibility and innovation for architecture that considers the rapid changes enveloping American society. Several years ago, I wrote that Orthodox parishes in America fall into three general categories or models of architecture: the immigrant church, liturgical renewal, and the American church. The establishment of mission parishes reintroduced an old element into the architectural model. All of these models respect the symbiosis of architecture and liturgy, but they also account for the lives of the people in their communities. Please note that there is variation within each model. The models are not cookie cutters or ecclesial versions of designs construction companies use to build homes quickly and efficiently in new neighborhoods. I'm saying this as the owner of a one-year-old home who picked from a short menu of designs that are scattered throughout the neighborhood. So our first model is the one most familiar to us, the immigrant church model. My research covered immigrant churches such as St. Catherine's Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Garden Hills, Minnesota, and Holy Virgin Russian Orthodox Cathedral in San Francisco. The Kremlin-Uspensky Cathedral inspired the design of Holy Virgin Cathedral, and St. Sophia in Kyiv was the model for St. Catherine's. Communities that evolve with time change the shape and the meaning of the new edifices, as we shall shortly see. So let us begin with Holy Virgin Cathedral. The current edifice is the second building of the community. At the time, the community consisted of Russian immigrants from Harbin and Shanghai who came to America after a stay in Western Europe. Archbishop St. John Maximovich managed the process of building the new church. The project was challenged by factions that emerged within the community. When asked to explain the reason for the delay of construction, St. John blamed the devil. Church construction was eventually completed. The edifice itself tells the story of the community, its history, and its self-identity. Holy Virgin Cathedral contains numerous relics of the royal family and prominently displays them for veneration. The interior iconography is famous, painted over the course of 9 summers by the renowned Jordanville iconographer Archimandrite Kipriel Pijov. A major change took place at Holy Virgin Cathedral following the glorification of St. John Maximovich. The cathedral contains his shrine and has distributed his relics throughout the Orthodox world. The community was originally home to the small community of Russian immigrants with roots in China and Western Europe. But after St. John's glorification, Holy Virgin Cathedral became a haven for pilgrimage, with Orthodox Christians coming to San Francisco to venerate St. John and pray for his intercession at his shrine. In a certain sense, St. John's glorification ignited a change in the community. The pastoral staff worked feverishly to meet the pastoral needs of pilgrims who breathed new life into an aging community. Holy Virgin Cathedral was no longer a relic of orthodoxy in Imperial Russia under Bolshevik persecution. It had evolved into a space for Orthodox pilgrims coming from throughout the world. St. Catherine's Ukrainian Orthodox Church shares many of the characteristics of St. John of Holy Virgin Cathedral and the inspiration for the design. So I want to emphasize different aspects of the use of the space in Garden Hills, Minnesota that tell its story. First, the picturesque exterior clashes with a modest interior. Space of the church itself appears large, but it is actually quite small. Conversely, St. Catherine's Parish Hall is enormous, almost double the size of the church. The community designed the large hall to accommodate major cultural and historical events. It is equipped with a full-scale kitchen so the parish can benefit from rental income. The most intriguing component, in my opinion, is the enclosed passageway connecting the church with the hall. St. Catherine's made this connector into a museum featuring paintings by its parishioners and relics collected over the years, including Dura. The museum in the space connecting the church and the hall is a space for the community's self-expression. It symbolizes the multivalence of community identity and expands the symbiosis of architecture and liturgy into something more. architecture, and the totality of community life and memory. The next model of my study was liturgical renewal. The models I studied included Three Hierarchs Chapel at St. Vladimir Seminary, of which we heard yesterday, and New Skeet Monastery, which we also heard about yesterday. I will focus on New Skeet for the purpose of time. New Skeet has two churches for worship, Holy Transfiguration Church built in 1970 and Holy Wisdom Church built in 1983. Holy Transfiguration conforms to what we might call the Middle Byzantine synthesis of Byzantine architecture, post-iconoclastic. Small onion domes adorn the roof of the temple. The interior is small with ample space for gathering in the nave, suitable for a small monastic community. The wooden structure with onion domes offers an attractive exterior. The monastic community of New Skeet collaborated to design Holy Wisdom Church. There's a much larger story here that we don't have time to get into, but for liturgics nerds, it is highly recommended. This edifice exemplifies liturgical renewal because the monks applied principles of Constantinopolitan and Hagiapolite liturgy to shape the design. Essentially, a monastic community reworked a cathedral liturgical tradition and made it into a monastic one. In a beautiful twist, the monks used largely forgotten aspects of the Byzantine cathedral liturgical tradition to create native liturgical offices that they could use in time and space in dialogue with their working schedules. They had been unable to balance their work and lives while adhering to the demands of the received Byzantine monastic liturgical cursus, so they created an adaptation of the urban cathedral rite to discover that balance. New Skeet observes stational liturgy, singing the office of antiphons outdoors when possible, and using Holy Transfiguration Church as a station, a revival of urban cathedral liturgy on a limited basis. The nave of Holy Wisdom Church is vast, with large chairs creating an ambush shaped as a semicircle. There is one seat for the presider in the center, the choir standing towards the north and the rear. The inspiration of Constantinople's Hagia Sophia is inscribed in the floor as a piece of marble from Hagia Sophia Tessera was given as a gift to New Skeet. The spacious solea leads to the sanctuary, which is surrounded by a chancel barrier as a three-sided templon with low walls containing two-sided icons on the sanctuary's interior and exterior. Participants have ample visual access into the sanctuary, which has doors in the front and two sets of opposing deacon's doors on the northern and southern ends of the structure, thus not adjacent to the typical royal doors as one experiences in the current Middle Byzantine synthesis. The walls above connecting the ceiling to the nave contain icons of dozens of figures central to New Skeet's identity. The walls depict holy figures in groups of 2 to 5 from the west end of the southern wall to the east end. The holy prophets of Isaiah and Elijah, Saints Hildegard of Bingen, Nectarios, Elizabeth of Moscow, Ephraim the Syrian, Silouan of Von Athos, Father Alexander Men, Archbishop Michael Ramsey, Patriarch Athenodorus, Pope Paul VI, some of these without halos, Saints Teresa, Benedicta, Catherine, Barbara, Agnes, and Cecilia, Saints Timothy, Barnabas, Mark, and Paul, Saints Matthias, Nathaniel, Jude, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, James, Alphaeus, and Matthew. And then the following figures adorn the southern wall from east to west. Saints Peter, Andrew, John, James, Philip, and Thomas, Saints Mary Magdalene, Martha, Mary, Johanna, and Mary, Saints Irenaeus of Lyon, Ambrose, Gregory of Nyssa, and Gregory the Great. Then at the time, Mother Maria Skoptsova, now Saint Maria of Paris, Dorothy Day, Father Legile, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and Father Alexander Schnellman, some without halos. Saints Patrick of Ireland, Augustine of Hippo, Andronicus, Athanasia, and Maximus the Greek, and the prophets Moses and David. New Skeet exemplifies the liturgical renewal model because of the adaptation of the cathedral rite for the monastic community contributed to the building's design. Iconography expresses the community's core values, depicting saints of East and West, along with holy figures beloved by the community, even if they have not been formally canonized by the institutional church. The symbiosis is therefore one of architecture and unity, with an emphasis placed on liturgical renewal. For the American church model, I selected for my study Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, in the suburbs of Milwaukee. In my notes, I have a joke about the spaceship church, so we already got that out of the way yesterday. Alex. No matter our opinion of the aesthetic, the structures are consistent with my thesis as they tell the story of the community. The exterior appearance of the structure is an attempt to honor the legacy of Hagia Sophia by making the dome alone the primary shape of the church. It was not financially feasible to imitate the larger Hagia Sophia structure, nor did it fit the current or anticipated needs of the community. The dome was part of a broader design innovation that anticipated what the community might become. The interior has theater-style seating, elevated seats with a long solea that extends into the seating. This interior draws from 19th century American religious tradition of emphasizing the role of the preacher who stands in the midst of the people, especially in Christian traditions that center on the proclamation of the word and preaching. For this, I refer you to the work of Jean Halgren Kildee, who has written extensively on this topic. Participants can see inside the sanctuary from numerous vantage points. The iconography was also new, and the vast domed ceiling was a uniform color, instead of depicting the Pantocrator typical of a Middle Byzantine edifice. Wright designed the structure in an attempt to fuse aspects of the community's past with the future he anticipated it would become. The idea is that an Orthodox church could blend into the American architectural landscape as an inevitable outcome of multi-generational community development. There are certainly other church structures that fit the larger American profile, and in some cases it was a matter of necessity, also alluded to in yesterday's discussion. Many communities cannot afford to build their own structures, so they repurpose old theaters, community halls, and churches of other denominations, while renovating the interior to accommodate the received Byzantine liturgy, which I might add has proven to be quite flexible in this regard, although sometimes it's not easy to have 3 inches to tray a sense icons. Just saying. Several years ago, the parish installed a large fresco of the Theotokos Platitera in the apse in a limited program of Byzantinization. On the one hand, this decision evinced the expiration of Wright's design experiment. On the other, the addition of the icon may have been even more suitable for the American church model, since the exterior is still unique, while the interior expresses contrast, perhaps a nod towards heterogeneity. Now, the review of these examples certainly does not exhaust the possibilities. Missions that worship in temporary and semi-permanent buildings have much to teach us. But now I want to return to this reality of the symbiosis of architecture and community. Communities evolve and respond to the events of the times. The first Christians met in the rooms of private homes and cemetery chapels. Following the Edict of Milan, they met in basilicas. They built baptismal chapels in cathedrals, sometimes in separate buildings with large fonts for adults and children. They processed while they prayed and stopped at important landmarks. These included at the cross in Jerusalem, the Forum in Constantinople, and the bakery in monasteries. They had the audacity to change the interior decoration following the triumph of Orthodoxy in the 9th century, transforming chancel barriers into iconostases, and replacing the large jeweled cross that hung from the top of Hagia Sophia with an icon of the Pantocrator. In the Soviet era, communities met in basements, garages, and forests. During pandemic stay-at-home orders, remember those? We prayed from our homes, connecting with others via the internet. In some places, the people met in large courtyards outdoors weather permitting. The governing principle of architecture is the gathered community. It gathers in a space that accommodates its needs. We take the fixtures of these spaces for granted: altars, narthexes, naves, iconostases. The gathered community, natural symbols like water, manufactured symbols like bread and wine, are the only fixed elements. All others have been subject to change over time. The Orthodox communities that gather in America have new needs created by environmental circumstances. The pandemic taught us that we need plenty of interior space, quality ventilation, and air purifiers. Many communities are in climates that would benefit from outdoor gathering spaces as well. The world is learning to live with the pandemic, but the coronavirus remains dangerous and deadly, and it won't be the last contagious disease that threatens us, especially our vulnerable populations. When possible, architects would be wise to consider designating spaces for outdoor gatherings, perhaps with covered pavilions. Outdoor space is underutilized. Parishes miss opportunities for using outdoor space for recreation. Many parishes are poised to add shrines for public devotion and veneration, extending the body of Christ into the public sphere. Restricting gatherings to the indoors reduces awareness of the environment. Decorating the church with poinsettias during Christmas and distributing palm branches or pussy willows on Palm Sunday are beautiful practices. But it is possible for the church to venerate the sanctity of creation by making the environment visible on the community's property. The other urgent task concerns greening spaces and reducing the church's carbon footprint. Are parishes interested in reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2030, which is the AIA 2030 commitment, keeping in mind that the built environment accounts for 40% of all carbon emissions? The church has an opportunity to bring practice into alignment with its teaching on caring for the environment. This requires a combination of greening ecclesial spaces and bringing the assembly into contact with the natural environment in a liturgical context. My concluding point concerns the expenses committed to decoration. If anyone has wandered down the streets of New York and seen the Writers Guild strike, we are reminded that artists need to eat. So parish committees devote large sums to hiring iconographers to use expensive materials for iconographic programs. The pandemic revealed another painful reality for the church when record numbers of people turned to food banks to simply survive. The pandemic did not create this problem. It simply exacerbated and exposed it. The church has a duty to feed the hungry, one that supersedes expensive interior iconographic programs. This is not an either-or equation. It's a matter of communities serving the public by creating spaces where they can contribute in some tangible, life-giving way to reducing food poverty and contributing to the life of the world. Orthodox architecture in America has sustained the traditions of the past and dipped its toes into adapting to ecclesial movements and cultural patterns. The current situation reveals the symbiosis of architecture and the community. Parishes can collaborate with architects to create spaces that serve parish communities and the public. Thank you.